The sun was low behind the red hills when a lone rancher returned to his land. After a long day of riding fences, his name was Elias, and he had lived alone for many years, since the world had taken from him everything. He once loved the ranch was wide and silent, broken only by the sound of wind moving through dry grass and old wooden barns. Elias liked the silence because it matched the emptiness inside his chest. He had built this ranch with his own hands after leaving a life full of noise and loss behind him, where memories of war, betrayal, and broken promises ahead of him was only land animals and long nights under endless stars. He believed solitude was the only way to survive without pain. That evening, as Elias tied his horse near the stable, he noticed something strange near the edge of his property, where the trees began to thicken. The ground showed signs of movement, footprints light, and unfamiliar as hand slowly reached for the rifle resting near the barn door, not out of fear but habit. He followed the trail quietly, his boots pressing into the dust with care. As he moved deeper into the trees, he heard a soft sound, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. Then he saw her. She stood near a fallen log, her dark hair flowing over her shoulders, her eyes wide with both fear and strength. She wore torn clothes marked by long travel and struggle. She was young, yet her posture carried the weight of many hardships. She was an Apache girl, though Elias did not know her name yet. Their eyes met, and for a moment time felt frozen. The girl took a step back, raising her hands, slowly showing. She carried no weapon. Her voice trembled, but was clear. "Please do not hurt me." Elias lowered his rifle slightly, confused by the sudden appearance of another human on his land, especially one so fragile, yet brave. He had not spoken to anyone in days, and his voice came out rough. "You are far from your people." The girl nodded, her eyes filled with quiet pain. She spoke of running, of danger behind her, of loss that still burned in her heart. She said she had crossed valleys and mountains to escape men who wished to take her freedom. Her words flowed slowly like water from a cracked jar, each sentence heavy with fear and hope. Elias listened without interruption. Something stirred inside him, something he thought had died long ago, compassion. He offered her water from his canteen, and after a moment of hesitation, she accepted their hands, almost touched, and both felt a strange warmth neither could explain. As the sun sank lower, Elias knew night would soon fall, and the land to be cruel after dark. He told her she could rest in the old shed near the barn. It was not much, but it was safe. The girl looked at him, searching his face for truth. Then she nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, as Elias lay in his small cabin, sleep would not come. His thoughts were filled with questions. Who was she? What pain had followed her here? And why did her presence make the silence feel different, less heavy? Outside, the wind carried distant sound of the land alive and watchful. Somewhere nearby, the Apache girl lay awake, as well clutching her memories and fears, unaware that her arrival had begun to change the fate of them both. Morning came slowly across the ranch, soft light spreading over the dry land and wooden fences. Elias rose early as always, but his thoughts were not steady like other days. He stepped outside, and the cool air carried the smell of earth and hay. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of responsibility that went beyond animals and land. He walked toward the old shed where he had offered shelter. The door was slightly open. He paused, unsure, then spoke gently to avoid frightening her. "You can come out. The day is safe." The Apache girl stepped into the light. Her eyes showed exhaustion, yet also alertness, like someone who had learned to survive by watching everything. Elias noticed bruises on her arms, marks of rough travel, and hidden pain. His chest tightened, though he said nothing. He handed her a piece of bread and some dried meat. She accepted with both hands, nodding in gratitude. She ate slowly, as if unsure when the next meal would come. Elias turned away to give her space, but stayed close enough so she would feel protected. After some time, she spoke again. Her voice was stronger than the night before. She told him her name was Naya. She said her village had been destroyed not by one enemy, but by hunger, fear, and broken treaties. Her family had scattered, some captured, some gone. Forever she had run, because staying meant losing herself. Elias listened while repairing a loose fence nearby. His hands worked, but his mind was with her story. He understood loss, though it came from a different world. He had lost his wife to sickness, and his son to war. After that, he had chosen isolation, believing connection only led to pain. Naya asked why he lived alone on such a wide land. Elias hesitated, then answered honestly. He said people leave scars deeper than bullets. He said silence never betrayed him. Naya listened carefully, then looked at the open land around them. "Silence can also be lonely," she said softly. Those words struck him harder than expected. He felt exposed, as if she had seen through the walls he built around himself. Later that day, Elias showed her where she could wash by the stream and where the sun was warm in the afternoon. He warned her of coyotes at night and showed her how to recognize safe paths. She watched closely, learning quickly. Her strength surprised him, not physical strength, but the kind that comes from enduring pain, without losing kindness. As the sun climbed higher, dust appeared on the far trail. Rider's Elias stiffened immediately. His instincts returned. He moved Naya behind the barn and told her to stay silent. His jaw tightened as he watched the figures approach. They were men, searching, eyes sharp and restless. They asked questions about a girl passing through. Elias answered calmly, saying he had seen no one. The men studied his land, suspicious, but found nothing. They eventually rode away, leaving tension hanging in the air like smoke. When they were gone, Naya stepped out, her face pale but composed. She looked at Elias and spoke words filled with emotion. "Please do not send me away." Elias met her gaze. He realized in that moment that protecting her meant inviting danger into his quiet life, yet letting her go meant returning her to fear and suffering. His heart battled his past. "You can stay," he said finally. Naya lowered her head, tears forming, but not falling. She placed her hand over her heart in a gesture of respect and gratitude. That evening they shared a simple meal by the fire. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was gentle, filled with understanding. The ranch that once held only memories of loss now carried the first signs of something new. Days passed quietly on the ranch, yet each day carried a different weight. Elias noticed how the land felt less empty, with another presence moving through it. Naya began helping with small tasks, feeding animals, collecting water, and learning the rhythm of ranch life. She worked without complaint, her movements careful yet confident, like someone rebuilding herself piece by piece. Elias watched from a distance, at first unsure how close to allow himself. He reminded himself that her stay was temporary, that danger still lingered beyond the hills. But despite these thoughts, he found himself teaching her things: how to read the sky for weather, how to listen to land for warning signs, and how to move silently through tall grass. Naya learned quickly, her eyes sharp, her memory strong. One afternoon, as clouds gathered unexpectedly, a storm rolled across the plains. Thunder echoed like distant drums. Naya froze the sound, pulling memories from deep within her. She crouched instinctively, covering her ears. Elias noticed immediately and moved closer, speaking calmly. "You are safe here." His voice cut through the storm inside her. She looked up at him, fear and trust mixing in her eyes. He guided her to the cabin, where the walls held firm against the wind. Rain struck the roof hard, but inside there was warmth and firelight. For the first time since her escape, Naya allowed herself to rest fully. As the storm passed, she spoke quietly about her childhood, about songs her mother used to sing and stories told around firelight. She described laughter that once filled her village and the sudden silence that followed its fall. Elias listened deeply, each word carving space in his guarded heart. He realized pain did not belong to one people alone. It spoke many languages, yet felt the same. That night, Elias dreamed of his past, his wife, smiling, his son running across open fields and fading into shadow. He woke with tears. He did not remember allowing himself to shed. Naya was awake, too, sitting near the door, watching the moonlight. She looked at him, without fear, without judgment. "Pain stays when we pretend it is gone," she said softly. Those words stayed with him through the next days. Elias found himself opening pieces of his past, slowly telling her about the war, the loss, and why he chose solitude. Naya listened. As he listened to her, their shared silence became a bridge, not a wall. But peace never lasts untouched. One morning, Elias found fresh tracks near the river, boot prints not belonging to him. His chest tightened. He knew the men's search would return, more desperate than before. He told Naya to prepare to leave if needed, but her eyes showed resolve. "I will not run forever," she said. That courage both frightened and inspired him. Elias made a decision he had avoided for years. He would stand for something again, not hide behind isolation. He began reinforcing fences, setting lookout points, and preparing supplies. His actions showed Naya that she was not alone. As days grew tense, a confrontation finally came. The riders returned, this time more aggressive, demanding answers. Elias stood firm, placing himself between them and the girl. They threatened violence, but Elias did not move. His calm strength unsettled them. After a long moment, they left, knowing the land and its guardian would not yield easily. When the dust settled, Naya felt her knees weaken. The danger had passed for now, but the cost was clear. Elias had chosen a path that could never return to quiet isolation. That evening, Naya looked at the horizon, then back at Elias. "You risked everything," she said. Elias nodded slowly. "Some things are worth the risk." The fire crackled as night fell. The ranch stood silent once more, but it was no longer empty. It was alive with trust, courage, and the beginning of a bond neither had expected yet both needed. The air on the ranch changed after that day, as if the land itself understood a choice had been made. Elias woke before sunrise, carrying a new kind of alertness, not fear, but purpose. He knew danger could return at any time, yet he no longer wished for escape. Instead, he prepared to protect what had found its way into his life. Naya sensed a change as well. She moved with confidence. Now her steps lighter, her eyes clearer. Though the past still lived inside her, it no longer controlled her every breath. She began sharing more of her knowledge of the land, teaching Elias how her people read signs. He had never noticed the way birds warned of strangers, the way wind shifted before trouble arrived. Together, they formed a quiet partnership built on trust. Rather than words, they worked side by side, repairing fences, tending animals, and gathering food. The ranch became a place of shared effort, not loneliness. Elias felt his hands grow steady again, his heart less guarded. One afternoon, while walking near the creek, Naya suddenly stopped. Her face tightened, and she whispered a warning. Elias followed her gaze and saw smoke far in the distance, not from a campfire, but something careless, something threatening. The memory of the riders returned instantly. They must decide now, Naya said quietly. Elias knew what that meant. Running would protect him for a time, but leaving the ranch meant abandoning the life he rebuilt, and exposing Naya to open danger. Staying meant standing firm against whatever came. He looked at the land, the cabin, the fences, all shaped by his hands, and now by their shared effort. "We stay," he said. That night, Elias prepared carefully, setting safe paths, hiding supplies, and planning escape routes. If needed, Naya watched, learning his methods, adding her own knowledge. They spoke little, but their understanding was complete. Before sleep, Naya sat near the fire, holding a small woven band. She explained it was made by her mother, a symbol of strength and belonging. She placed it gently into Elias' hand. "You gave me shelter when I had nothing," she said. "This means you are no longer alone." Elias closed his fingers around the band, feeling its meaning settle deep within him. No one had offered him belonging since his family was lost. His eyes burned, but he remained steady. The next day, strangers appeared again, not the same men, but others. Their intentions were unclear, but their presence carried threat. Elias stepped forward calmly. Naya remained beside him, not behind. She stood tall, refusing to be hidden. The men spoke of land ownership, of claims and power. Elias answered firmly, stating the land was his, and none would take it by force. His voice carried strength born of conviction, not anger. The standoff lasted long moments, until the strangers realized resistance would not break easily. They left without violence, but the warning was clear. After they were gone, Naya exhaled deeply. She turned to Elias and spoke words filled with honesty. "When I first ran, I believed safety meant hiding. Now I know safety can also mean standing still and facing what comes." Elias nodded, understanding her truth mirrored his own. That evening they watched the sky turn red and gold. The land stretched wide and quiet, but no longer empty. The bond between them had grown beyond protection into something deeper, a shared resilience. They did not know what the future would bring, but they knew one thing: whatever came, they would face it together, rooted in courage, trust, and the strength found in choosing to stay. The following days were filled with a heavy calm, like the pause before a deep breath. Elias and Naya continued their work, but both sensed that the land was testing them. Elias sharpened tools, checked fences, and watched the horizon. More often, Naya gathered herbs, prepared food, and learned the animals' habits. With care, each movement felt meaningful, as if they were building more than survival. One morning, Naya asked Elias to follow her into the hills beyond the ranch. She said there was a place her people once used for reflection and strength. Elias agreed, trusting her instincts. They climbed slowly until the ranch appeared small below them. The wind carried memories and silence in equal measure. At the top, Naya stood facing the open sky. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She spoke of her ancestors, of lessons passed through generations about endurance, respect, and balance. She said strength was not only in fighting, but in knowing why you stand. Elias listened, feeling something shift inside him. He realized he had been surviving, not living, holding ground without purpose, until now Naya had given his land meaning again, not through ownership, but through connection. As they returned, they spotted movement near the far fence. This time it was not hostile men, but travelers, families tired and cautious. They asked for water, and Elias hesitated, only briefly, then nodded, remembering the kindness that had once saved Naya. The travelers stayed a short time, grateful and respectful. They left stories behind, proof that compassion did not always invite danger. That night, by the fire, Naya spoke softly. "Kindness changes paths, even if we never see where they lead." Elias thought of the man he once was, hardened, closed, and silent. He saw how far he had come without realizing it. But peace is often brief. Before dawn, distant gunshots echoed across the plains. Elias and Naya woke instantly. The sound was far, yet close enough to warn they knew others were fighting over land power, and fear. Elias understood that violence would continue around them whether they chose it or not. Naya looked at him, her voice steady but urgent. This place will always be tested. Elias nodded. He had already accepted that truth. What mattered was how they responded. He chose to prepare not with anger, but with resolve. He set signals and safe routes, making sure that anyone seeking shelter would find guidance, not traps. As the sun rose, Elias stood at the edge of the ranch looking outward. He realized he was no longer guarding, preventing loss, but protecting possibility. The difference felt powerful. Later that day, Naya approached him with a difficult truth. She said one day she might feel called to find her remaining people to help rebuild what was lost. She feared that leaving might reopen old wounds between them. Elias felt the weight of her words, but did not turn away. He answered honestly, "If your path leads you away, it does not erase what we built here." Naya looked relieved and saddened at once. She nodded, understanding that true care did not imprison. That evening they sat in silence, watching stars emerge. The land breathed around them, alive with promise and uncertainty. Elias felt gratitude for the journey pain had led him on, because it brought him here to this moment of shared strength. The final days of summer arrived quietly across the ranch, bringing long shadows and golden light. Elias felt a calm settle within him, not the empty calm of isolation, but the steady peace of understanding. He and Naya moved through their days with ease, shaped by trust built over time. One morning, Naya stood watching the horizon longer than usual. Elias sensed what was coming before she spoke. Her heart was turning outward again, pulled by memory, duty, and hope. She told him she had heard distant signs of her people moving, gathering, trying to rebuild what was broken. "I need to find them," she said softly. Elias felt a familiar ache of loss rise within him, but it no longer ruled him. He had learned that love did not always mean holding on. Sometimes it meant giving strength to walk forward. He nodded slowly. "This land will always remember you," he said. They prepared together without sorrow, without fear. Elias gave her supplies, food, a horse, and the knowledge of safe paths. Naya gave him something deeper. She placed her hand over his heart and thanked him not only for shelter, but for seeing her as more than someone to hide. Before she left, she turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude and resolve. "Please do not return to silence." Elias promised. He watched as she rode toward the hills, her figure growing smaller, yet never fading from his spirit. Days passed, then weeks. Elias continued tending the ranch, but now he welcomed travelers, offered guidance, and shared stories. The land became a place of rest, not refuge from life, but a bridge between broken paths. Elias felt his past no longer chained him and had shaped him for this purpose. One evening as the sun set, Elias noticed a familiar figure returning along the trail. His heart lifted as Naya approached, not alone, but with others, men, women, and children carrying hope in tired eyes. They greeted him with respect and warmth, recognizing the land as a place of safety. Naya smiled. "We are rebuilding," she said, "and we needed a place to begin." Elias understood then that the ranch had become more than his home. It was a promise, fulfilled the pain of the past, had transformed into strength shared across lives. As night fell, fires were lit, laughter returned to land, and songs once lost were heard again. Elias stood watching, knowing he was no longer alone nor afraid. He had chosen compassion over isolation, courage over silence. And in that choice he found something greater than peace. He found purpose.